Okay, got it. Anyway, uh, this is the first time I've seen so many Michelles with just a one L in my entire life. It's just amazing. Um, Considering that I'm 71 years old and I never thought I'd get this old. I thought for sure that because I drank so much that, I wasn't even going to make it past 30 if I made it that far. Um, anyway, um, I am or was a Catholic Irish alcoholic, and I believe that I was born an alcoholic. I absolutely loved the taste of booze. I loved beer. I grew up in Southern California, very close to the wineries, and we went tasting all the time. In fact, my main job when I turned 16, uh, I was designated driver for my mother and our parish priest to go to the winery and test the wine for Sunday Mass. Um, and then we'd bring it home and they'd sit. Um, the first time I remember really getting a taste of alcohol was when my grandmother came to visit from New Jersey or wherever she happened to be living with one of her 6 kids. And a, a week after she got there, she got a package in the mail. And she opened it up and we put her still together. Now, that's not normal in Southern California, but it was normal for my grandmother. And she put her still together. She made her own hooch and she sipped all day, every day, and watched her stories. And then she would pack it up and leave and go to her next kid for the next couple months. And she would always give me sips, and I liked it. You know? When I got sick, I liked getting sick because if I got sick enough, I could get hot tea with lemon and honey and Southern Comfort in it. And I knew exactly what it was going to do to me. I was going to be happy. You know, because I wasn't a happy kid. I hated being a kid. I hated living at home. I hated going to school. Now, I didn't mind kindergarten because I was, since I lived in Southern California, uh, the kid who was Timmy on Lassie was in my kindergarten class. And um, since I was an ornery little shit, and so was he, if we were good and we took naps, then he got to bring Lassie to school. And so that was pretty cool. But I did not live up to my parents' expectations. Um, I'm one of those kids who read before at 4 years old, before I went to school, and then they gave me one of those IQ tests and found out that I was brilliant. So you know what that did? It gave them expectations of my impending doom, and at least what I know of as my impending doom, but um, I never managed to live up to their expectations of that IQ. I didn't fit in when I went to school because I was a geek, you know, glasses, had to go to Catholic school, wore the ugliest uniform that I had ever seen at a Catholic school, ever. Brown and white, check, yuck, Why couldn't they pick up something good? But they didn't. And, I just never fit in with anybody. I was too different, just way too different. Um, and in fact, at one time, my parents had a trunk packed with all my stuff because I was supposed to be a nun. And they were going to send me off to Ponca City to be a nun. Well, one of the nuns found the bruises on my arms that I got from my mother. And that was the end of that. You know, they pulled me out of school, sent me to public school, and I went. And I could be a normal kid because there were other geeks like me, and nobody knew who my parents were, you know. It was okay for me if I wanted to be smart. It was okay for me if I didn't want to be smart. It was okay to just be, you know. Um, since I was a child of the 60s, I did some things that I wasn't supposed to do. And that started when I went away to college in 1960. I went to San Diego State. I didn't drink before I graduated high school. I only drank afterwards because you weren't supposed to do that. Good little Catholic girls not supposed to do that. And I was too afraid to get into trouble. When your dad's a football coach too, you got to be on the straight and narrow. So I went to San Diego State. It's not where I wanted to go, but they sent me there because one of my dad's football players was the quarterback, and they told him to take care of me. And he did. He introduced me to Sigma Chi fraternity brothers, and damn, it was wonderful. That first day I got to go to Tager, and my whole life turned around. I instantly became wonderful, and I kind of fit in. I could talk and not talk. It didn't matter if I was different or dressed different or whatever. Nobody cared. People were in shorts and flip-flops in San Diego, and I was 3 hours from home there. So my parents couldn't come down and get me. The last thing my parents said to me as they dropped me off was, "You will never go to Mexico." That's where I was the next day. Yeah. Put the surfboard on top of my roommate's VW van, and off we went. And the next 4 years pretty much ran the same way. I didn't join a sorority. I joined the fraternity. I became a little sister of the frat, and I picked the frat that had the pool and the open Tager. As a little sister, I could go in and out whenever I wanted, and I did. Did I finish college in 4 years? No. Why? Because I started drinking. I was not a heavy drinker until after my junior year of college. But I had entirely way too much fun the whole time. Almost flunked out. And then I went the other way and got a 4.0. So, you know what us overachievers are like. But after that 4 years, I really went down the tubes because I had a few broken engagements. Notice I said a few. I've had 7 engagements totally. Uh, only made it to the altar twice, which I think is an achievement. Um, but I just couldn't get it together. You know, I didn't drink every day, didn't drink every week. I'd go in big spurts and then go and tie one on. And when I had to move home because my sister was sick, I resented the hell out of it. And all I wanted to do was drink, but I had to be very careful. You know, I had a few jobs in there, a couple I liked, a couple I didn't like. I became an assistant buyer for a department store, liked it, but you know, on the job was a lot of drinking. Got me into a lot of trouble. What also got me into trouble was I dated too much and I didn't get married. My sister got married when she was 19. She was supposedly dying. She's still alive. Um, and and that's always ticked me off because they pulled me out of school for that, and I could have still been drinking. And but anyway, I dated too much, according to my family. If they'd only known how much I dated when I was in college, they would have really had a fit. But I never told them everything that I did. The only thing that my mother found that I really got in trouble for, she found my tickets to Woodstock. And then I really got in trouble. And she found my insignia boxers from the Boxer Rebellion, and I got in trouble again. And, you know, I just couldn't do anything right. So why should I even try? But I wanted to get everybody off my back. And so I was introduced to a man, and on the 4th of July, 1976, 200th birthday, we got married. Hopefully, get everybody off my back. 2.5 days later, I ended up in the hospital almost dead. Yeah, he just absolutely beat the living shit out of me. And I remember after I got out of the hospital, uh, going to try and pick up some clothes and things. The whole place was a mess. But everything was gone. He took everything I owned, even my underwear. I don't know why he'd want my underwear, but you know, crazier things have happened, right? Um, and then there was another downward spiral for me. You know, for lots of women, it takes big, huge heartache, trauma in their life to make them wake up or to cause them to drink a lot. For me, I was starting to wake up. But I digress here. When I was in the hospital, my doctor called my parents and said, "Your daughter is here. You need to come and get her." And my mother, who had gone to Al-Anon, whose favorite line was, "I'm spiritual." She would put her hands up in the air and do all this weird shit. And I was like, I don't know if they do that at meetings. But I don't know because I didn't want to go. They said she made her bed, she can lie in it. And my doctor at that point hung up the phone and he said, "I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they are no longer my patients." He never treated them again. He said they have no compassion. And that's the first time anybody ever said anything really negative about my family. That told me that there was something different about the way that I grew up. And I knew that from when I went to college, and, nobody else's family was like mine. I just, I pretty much kept my mouth shut. So I didn't want them to really know what happened in my house. We had secrets in my house. And I was told, you never tell anyone what happens here. After I got out of that hospital, I didn't quite know what to do. And some people gave me some money, and I ended up in like a boarding house kind of thing for a week or so. And I went to church, and I had one dime left, and I lit a candle. And the priest came out, and he said, and this is a priest I drank with. He says, "We can't help you." And I said, "That's okay." I knew that God had helped me because he always did. Because I left church and I walked around the corner, and these two girls were coming down the street, and they looked at me and they said, "She's why we're here." And I was like shaking my head going, "Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about." Well, the day before, they had been to the dentist, and the one girl had to have a root canal done. But he didn't have time to do it that day, so he told him to come back the next day. Well, the next day was the day they met me. And he took another x-ray, and she didn't need a root canal. There's nothing wrong with her. Angels unaware. He brought the angels to me. For me, that was what I would call divine intervention. Now, God's taking care of me. He knew what I needed before I needed it. He always has. Well, they took me back to where they were living, which was a ranch where they took care of juvenile delinquents. kids who were, they thought could be saved from not quite bad enough to go to the penitentiary and not quite old enough yet. And that's when I first got my first taste of what I really should be doing with my life. Because I really wanted to be a teacher. But I couldn't. Anyway, things happened and I left there, and next thing I know, my parents are making waves like, oh, we're fine, everything's wonderful, da da da. And they shipped me off to Sequoia National Park, and well, it's a wonderful place to drink, you know. Go rattlesnake hunting on the weekends, take all the rattlers down to UCLA, get paid for that, drink some more. You know. Didn't quite work out well. I had to come home, and I was given an ultimatum. You either go to treatment or you go to the nut house. Well, I'm not stupid. You know, I knew if I went to the nut house, they'd keep me. You know, so I said, I'll go to treatment. So I went to treatment. While I was in treatment, I went into a coma. And when I came out of the coma, the priest was giving me the last rites. But before I opened my eyes, God told me he wasn't finished with me yet. You can believe that or not, that I know. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. I had a temperature of 107.9. What was I doing in treatment? God couldn't would have thought. God's taking care of me again. Takes care of stupid people. You know, all I'd done was light that one candle and ask God to show me the right way. So I got into AA and got my first teaching job. Newly sober, 7th grade, 13-year-olds, 45 little turds in my room all day long because it was a private school. Oh my God, we're all going through puberty together. Oh, I was pulling pint bottles and joints out of their pockets like there was no tomorrow. And I thought, this is nuts. This is nuts. We had a freak snowstorm in April. So we went skiing. And before I could even get out on the slopes, this little 5-year-old kid comes barreling into me and busts my knee. Didn't even make it on the slopes. I taught for a couple weeks with my knee in a cast. Couldn't do it much longer. My principal said, you know, you are the only teacher that we've had for this group of kids since kindergarten that has lasted this long. They usually quit before Christmas. You don't have a degree, but you need to go and take care of yourself, but please don't give up your dream. You'll be a wonderful teacher when you finish. So I went out after that and got drunk because I did stuff that I wasn't supposed to do in AA. You know, I know that all of you guys are perfect, especially women. You know, you do what your sponsor tells you. Of course, I went through 6 sponsors in that first year. tell you not to get emotionally involved. I got several emotionally involved with several people. I got engaged, but he committed suicide because he couldn't stay off the drugs. Had a new sugar daddy because I couldn't afford to eat, so I had to have some way to eat. Yeah. I didn't listen to anybody. I went to meetings every day, sometimes twice a day, did some service, but I wasn't in AA. I was there. I was a body taking up a seat. And when I came in, there weren't very many women in AA. And the first woman that I met at a meeting was a speaker meeting in Tustin, California, and it was Irish Annie. And I was sitting in the back row of this big speaker meeting. And when she was done speaking, she just hauled out off that podium and came down and told the guys to stay away from me. No 13th stepping. Leave me alone. Not that they listened either, but I remembered Annie. She was scary, and talked to that Irish brogue, and I didn't want to get in trouble with her at all, although I ended up doing that. But on the 4th of July, 1978, I went to Palm Springs with the sugar daddy, took a drink, started crying. We went home. Well, of course, the next day I spent in the pool because I didn't want to get out of the pool because I didn't want anybody to know I was drunk. Ended up getting the worst sunburn I'd ever had in my entire life. But all I could do when I was out of there was cry. Because not only had I let AA down, I'd let me down. Because I had seen that there was something different. So when we got back to Huntington Beach, I went to meetings, not where I'd gone to meetings because I didn't want anybody to know I went out and got drunk. And then I drank until I couldn't drink anymore. My roommate found me in my closet with a case of tall Budweisers on one knee and my big book on the other. It's like, what are you going to do? I'm going to call central office. And I called central office, and the lady who answered was the woman I hated most in AA. I could not stand her. And that's who answered the phone. And she was a little busy on the side because her boyfriend was there. But she talked to me. She told me to get my shit together. And I knew what to do. And so I did. I called my friend April. And April had orders from her sponsor to babysit me all day. And we were to go to the young people's meeting that night in Laguna Beach. Now we had to sit by the pool because April had to work on her can. And I had the bucket so I could barf in the bucket all day long by the pool. I couldn't get in my clothes because I'd blown up. So they'd scrounged up an ugly red sweatshirt for me, and somebody else's size 12 jeans. And at that point, I only wore 4. They let me take a shower. They let me comb my hair. I was not allowed to curl it. Was not allowed to put on my makeup. And they took me to the young people's meeting in Laguna Beach. That is incomprehensible demoralization, because that's the meeting where you got your dates for the next week. Everybody's checking everybody out. But that night was a speaker meeting, and the speaker was Chuck C. Now, some of you may know who Chuck C is. If you don't, please get on YouTube and listen to him, or read his book, A New Pair of Glasses, which I think should be conference approved, but that's my opinion and my opinion only. And I don't care what anybody else thinks. Screw 'em. But they brought me up to him, and he took one look at me, and he looked in my eyes, and he said, "You're done." And I got to sit next to him until he got up to talk. And as Glenn will tell you, he's got that little laugh that he. But I swear that guy just floated. He just floated. And I got a hug from him that night, and he just said, "Remember, you're done. And anytime you think that you're not, remember I told you, you're done." So whenever I get stinking thinking, I always remember Chuck told me I was done. And after that, I went to another meeting, and I went to a women's meeting, and guess who was the speaker at that meeting? Ira Fanning. She goes, "I remember you. You were the one that was surrounded by all the men." Oh, shit. You be at this meeting tomorrow. You don't tell Annie no. You go. Okay. They hooked me up. Anyway, I started going to lots of meetings, and I was going to meetings in Newport Beach, and I was pretty scary, and they bought me my own rocker, because I rock back and forth almost catatonically like this, back and forth. They wouldn't let anybody else sit there but me. That was my rocker. And it was at that meeting that I met my sponsor. And she came up the stairs, and she'd just gotten cleared from skin cancer. And she had this big old purse with a brand new puppy, and a kite, and yo-yos, and balls, and all kinds of stuff, frisbees and everything. And she invited everybody out to the beach after the meeting. And at that meeting, everybody was shaking their head at her. They didn't get her. They didn't understand her. Guess who's the only one who showed up at the beach after the meeting? Me. I was the only one who needed to be there. And I asked her to be my sponsor. Just what happens in AA when you don't drink. You don't drink and you don't die. Get to be an old timer. She's an old timer. Anyway, she walked me through things that most people didn't get to walk through. And on February 9th, 1980, I took my third step with her, like it says in the book. I swore off men. And the next day I went to Lagoon Beach to a meeting on Sunday. And my husband, who's John D. down there from Kansas, who with Shel Silverstein in the background, he was there at the meeting, and he came over after the meeting to try and fix me because he figured I was broken. I told him I wasn't. Told him where I went to meetings. We met up the next week, and I never left. Now, we decided we needed to get married, and he had to ask my sponsor, and he did. You know, that's pretty scary. And we were married on his second AA birthday. I got 20 days on him because his birthday's the 27th. And that was my sponsor's idea so that he wouldn't forget our anniversary because we knew he wouldn't forget his AA birthday. Now, I'm so lucky because today he still loves me no matter what. Even though he has to stay out of my program, he can't tell me what to do. But on February 9th, 1982, we had the child at 11:52 a.m., the same time I took the third step with my sponsor, 2 years before our daughter was born. And later that night, I got a call from Elder Shanny saying, "Where the hell were you today?" Because I was supposed to be at the women's lunch meeting at Denny's in Huntington Beach, except I was having an emergency C-section. But she chewed me out. She said, "You couldn't wait." I'm like, it wasn't my decision, you know. If I could have gone to the meeting first, I would have. Trust me, you know, because nobody wants to get in trouble with Annie. And so, you know, and there it went. 6 weeks after our daughter was born, actually, our daughter went to her first AA meeting at 8 days old. She got passed around the alarm clock, scared the shit out of me. And at 6 weeks old, we moved from Huntington Beach, California, 2 blocks from the water, to Norton, Kansas. I went back in the dark ages. Reverse culture shock, people. I didn't own real shoes or an umbrella or a coat. And it snows here and all kinds of weird stuff. And there's tornadoes and gosh. But, you know, God helps those who can't help themselves. I got to go back to school. I got to finish my degree. You know, one school told me, "Oh, you won't ever finish." Oh, I finished with honors. I got a job teaching. And I got to teach art for a few years, and then I taught third grade, and then I switched jobs and taught art again, and then taught fourth grade and fifth grade, and I also went back, got my master's degree, and they were trying to talk me into getting my doctorate, and I went, "No, I'm old, you know. I went back to school at 40. I got my master's at 50. You know, this crazy alcoholic got teacher of the year twice from Walmart and got money from them. You know, I've got all kinds of crazy things just because I talk to God, because I go to meetings a lot, always, never stop. You know, today I love Zoom because I get to go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meetings a day. I could just live in AA. And I practically do. But today I have all these kids who I taught who don't know that I'm in AA. They didn't know they were in AA either, you know, but they had things like turn negatives into positives up on the bulletin board. This too shall pass on the bulletin board, you know. And I came across something, and one of my kids gave me the other night, this little thingy, because they were always giving me weird stuff, and it says, unless you're willing to do the ridiculous, God will not do the miraculous. And I did the ridiculous in my classroom. I'm the one who got up on top of the table to teach these little kids in Kansas how to hang 10 and surf. And then my superintendent walked in as I'm standing on the table on a make-believe surfboard. And my little kids are all on their little make-believe surfboards that we made. And we're all like, you know, and he goes, my principal said that was stupid. Well, that's year Surf's Up came out, and I took my whole class to see the movie, and they're like, we know what that is. Because they learned how to hang 10 in class. Point of reference. But you guys taught me how to live. You taught me how to laugh, and you taught me how to love. You taught me how to give freely of myself to everybody else without asking for anything in return. And for that, I am truly, truly grateful today. Truly grateful. I cannot tell you how important this program is to me. I just know that I agree with Chuck C. Sobriety comes first. It is the most important thing, more important than anything. You know, my home group, when I sobered up, said, go to meetings, go to work, we'll take care of the rest. You take care of the wreckage of your past. They handed me calendar, they fed me. You know? AA has always taken care of me. And it will always take care of you if you put your sobriety first. Is there somebody here who just only has like 30, 60 or 90 days or something? Who has the least amount of sobriety? Is there somebody who?
Amy has got 6 months. She's not here now.
Okay. Well, I will get with you after the meeting, going to I will send you something that you can, if you live around there.
Say that again, please.
Does, does Andy live around where you guys are?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Well, so much for that idea. Anyway, I have lots of ideas to go cockeyed work awry. So anyway, I'm glad to be here, and I was really glad to be sober. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to share.